Hey, Larry here. Acts 29 today. Coming to you from Sunny World headquarters in Chiang Mai, Thailand. I'd like to welcome all the viewers here in Thailand and around the world. Today, I'm gonna go through a very important thing that God showed me years ago, and it had to do with an accident that I was in years ago, back during this time when my mother was believing for her family. And I was in several accidents during those years that could have easily taken my life, and everybody thought it should have, but somehow it didn't. But one of these accidents was involved my pickup truck, and I had been over at my brother's, and I was on my way home, and that's the last thing I remember, because in this wreck I had a bad brain concussion, and so I didn't remember anything of the accident at all. I read about it in the newspaper, I saw my name, but it was like it happened in Zimbabwe, because I had no recollection in my own mind of what happened. Nothing. I remember leaving my brother's house, driving out of his driveway, and then I woke up in the hospital. My mom was at my side, and she said that I had been in an accident. And that's all I remember. So it was very hard to investigate from my point of view, because I didn't remember anything about it. It was like I'd never been in an accident. But what happened is I was in my old pickup. It was like a 49 or 50 Ford, built like a tank. And there was a four-way intersection in the middle of this big field, and people always wondered, how could anybody hit anybody here, because you can see anybody coming for a long ways, but there were always accidents there. So they'd put a yield right-of-way sign north and south, and that's the direction I was going. Well, it was about sunset, so they figured when I looked to the left, I probably was blinded by the sun. But a woman was coming with 7 kids in the cab of this 1.5-ton truck. She had 3 or 4 cows in the back, on this flatbed on the back, and she hit me right before the driver's side door. And I don't know if you can really see this very good. It's hard to kind of show the picture here, but this was my pickup, and I got hit there right above the front wheel, and I don't know how fast she was going, probably not real fast. I wasn't going real fast, but in the crash, I was thrown out of the truck, and I landed in the ditch, and the truck came down right on top of me. When when the ambulance got there, which probably took some time because nobody had a cell phone in those days. So when the ambulance got there, a friend of mine that actually knew me was working in the ambulance that afternoon. So he told me later all about it. But he said when they got there, there were cows all over the road, there were people all over the road, and unfortunately there was a 7-year-old girl that got killed in the accident, and then there were many other injuries, and it was a terrible thing. They didn't see me anywhere. They figured I was under the truck and probably dead, so they got everybody else taken care of first. And then when all that was done, they came over, and the ditch was pretty deep, so they rolled the truck over on its side, and there I was laying underneath the truck. So to their dismay, I was still alive because the way the truck had landed, it had only put a few pounds of pressure. I was laying on my back, and it only put a few pounds of pressure on my body, on my stomach. If it had been a few inches either way, it would have crushed me completely. And so they, got me in the ambulance, and my friend said that I asked him on the way, was I going to make it? And he said, yeah, you're fine, no problem. So I don't remember that either. But, it was a terrible accident, and they charged me with negligent homicide, and that comes with a jail sentence of some years. And after a year or so of battling out in court, I finally walked away with a fine and no jail time. So what happened after that horrible accident was, years later, I was just praying one day and worshiping God and in His presence, and the Holy Spirit showed me a vision, a mini vision of something that happened that day, and it was so incredible, life and death. And what He showed me was, I saw in this vision, I saw the truck coming down through the air. I saw myself laying in the ditch, and as the truck was coming down through the air, I saw there was an angel on one side, and on the other side was a demon. And as the truck came down, they kept pushing it back and forth. The angel would push it over to where I wouldn't be killed. The demon would push it back over to where I would be killed when it hit the ground. And so it was like there was this battle for my soul. And life and death was definitely in the balance. Well, as the truck came down, as it was just, a couple of feet above my body, it kind of went from slow motion into slower motion, and I saw the angel push it over to where it wouldn't kill me. And then about a foot from my body, the demon pushed it back over to where it would kill me. And the demon said, "You cannot have Larry because he is not born again. He is not saved. You cannot have him." And the angel immediately pushed it back over and said, "But his mother believes that he is." Bam! It hit the ground, and my life was saved. Wow. I was amazed, man. I was in shock to see that vision of what happened that day. He said, "But his mother believes he is." And because my mother believed that I was saved and that I was born again, when she prayed that prayer years before, God counted it as done because of her faith. See, faith takes the place until the manifestation comes. So it's already done. In the spirit realm, in God's view, I was born again the day she believed I was. It just hadn't caught up in the natural world yet. But God believed I already was. Look at Abraham's life and read about his faith. He said that God raises the dead and calls those things that be not as though they were. He calls the non-existent things that are not as though they were. It doesn't mean that they're never going to be. It means they're not yet. So God calls the things that are not yet as though they were. He called Abraham, changed his name to Abraham, the father of many nations. He was calling Abraham the father of many nations before he was in the natural. And because Abraham believed, it was accounted as righteousness unto him, right standing with God. So that is the title, actually, of the book that I wrote about my testimony that you can find on the Facebook page, Acts 29 Today Books. And you'll see it there. It's got a picture of a sunset on it, and the title is, But His Mother Believes He Is. The incredible story of a mother's faith and a son's search for more. So that book is there. And so, to me, that was just showing me in an undoubtable way how important our faith is when it comes to believing for people's salvation and people's lives to be changed. You know, the children of Israel, they all got delivered from Egypt, the type of the world, but they died in the wilderness. They didn't make it into the promised land because there was no faith. They died in unbelief. They didn't add faith to what was going on. They had no faith in God and trust that he could do what he said he was going to do. And so they didn't make it. There's only 2 out of that generation that made it in, Joshua and Caleb. So this faith is very, very important, and later on I'll be going through a lot more detail about faith and and how it works and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for tuning in. This is a very, very important part of my story and my mom's testimony. And so this will be the end of this series, my testimony series. And next I'll be going through my second book, which is called Launching Out into the Deep. And it will take us on a journey from what happened after I got born again, basically all the way up to where I am now. But some of the incredible things that God revealed to me and showed me that took me from one place all the way to actually living out my purpose and destiny in this life. And so I'll be going through that whole thing in the next series of videos. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you watching, and I just pray that these increase your faith and encourage you. So I'll see you over there on that next video. And remember, now it's your turn to write your chapter.